Hi, this is Kevin, and welcome to part three of my tutorial for the static files and generic class-based views coding assignment. And in part three, we're working on some more of the generic class-based views. And in particular, what we're going to do is we're going to start working on the list views. And you'll remember that two of our list of views, the instructor and the student, are paginated. And so we're going to work on those first because we're going to do some refactoring and some we're actually going to increase the pagination features. Okay, so we're going to work on the instructor list together, and then at the end of the tutorial, you're going to work on the student list on your own. Okay, so let's take a look at the instructor list. Okay, first of all, let's revisit the details of how how that all works right now. Okay, let's just look at the functionality. Okay, so let's fire up our browser. Okay, and you'll remember that instructors, that brings up the instructor list. And right now we've got this kind of content down here. We have a page 1 of 6, and then we've got the next. And if we go, it's only going to put out a previous and a next link if one's appropriate for our circumstances. And even all the pagination content that we have down here, it's only going to be put out if there's enough content to paginate. If there's only a single page of content, we're not going to get any of that. Okay, so that's the functionality that we get for instructors, and if we go to students, you can see we get the same functionality. Same deal. Okay, so let's take a look at all of this. All right, so this is a views related issue. So let's open up views and let's go to instructor list. It's way up at the top. And instructor list is a pretty big view in terms of lines of code. Oh, it's over 20 lines of code long. It might be 30 lines of code long. It's big. Okay, so and it's probably one of the biggest that we have. And let's think about what we would like to do ideally. Well, one is we don't want to have to work any harder than we want to. And you would think that there's a lot of the logic of a list view that would be common from one list to the next. So you would think this would be a really kind of a fertile area for one of these generic class-based views. For instance, we might have a generic class-based view called a list view. And in fact, we do. Okay, so we're going to take advantage of list view. The next thing that we're going to do is we've got this pagination code right here in the view. And we've got a copy of it in two different views. So what we want to do is we want to kind of factor that out and put it, create a mix-in, right, that we're going to use um, instead of having it in uh, every paginated view. All right, so let's do this. Let's take our current version of instructor list, okay, and let's toggle it into a comment until we have it properly replaced, and then we'll get rid of that, okay, and then um, let's get the new code. Now my new code is really brief. So my new code that I'm going to replace this 30 lines of code with is 3 lines of code long. That's interesting. Okay, well, that's great. That's the motivation for doing this. Less to code, less to test, less to maintain. Okay, good. Now, how did we mention it? How did we manage to do this? Well, we did two things at the same time. One is that we're basing this on, this is a subclass of ListView, which is one of the generic class-based views. So let's do the import for that. Okay. And the other is we've taken the pagination code out of the individual view and we have included it as a mix-in. Now, you remember that a mix-in is a superclass, because in Python, a class can be a subclass of more than one class. Typically, in terms of the overall kind of intentionality and the functionality of the class, we only inherit from one class. So primarily, we are inheriting from list view. But we have these mix-ins, and we had one before, and these are kind of common capabilities. Okay, and this one does the page links. So let's add an import for this, although we don't quite have that yet. Okay, so how are we going to make that work? Well, the mixins are in this utilities.py or utils.py. Let's open this up. Okay, we have this object create mixin. Okay, oddly enough, by the time we get done the refactoring to use generic class-based views, we'll have gotten rid of our need for that. But since we've taken the same kind of architectural approach for the page links mix-in code, we're hang on a second. Oh, here it is. Because we've done that, we're going to put it in the same spot. Okay, so let's look at the mixing code. Let's put this here. All right. Now, I have included in your starter files a version of utils.py that's got both of the mix-ins in it. Okay, it's got the original object create mix-in. By the time we get done with this overall set of tutorials, we will be able to delete that from this module. Not yet, though. And the page links mix-in, I gave that to you so you're not going to have to type that in. Okay, well, let's look at this code, which is going to be inherited by both of our paginated views. Okay, and let's take a look at the code. Okay, so the page quark, page keyword argument. What variable are we going to look in to find the page that we're looking for? Well, it's going to be in a variable called page. Okay, so we have a method page URLs. We've got a first page. We have a previous page. We have a next page. We have a last page. We have a get context data where we pull a lot of the data out of the context, etc. Okay, so it's a pretty extensive code. Uh, where did we get it? We got it from Pinkham. Okay. Now, did Pinkham invent all this code himself? Uh, Maybe not. I don't know. I'm sure he got some of the ideas from other people and he adapted them. But we're going to use it as is. Okay. And then so we've got that code. Now let's go back to views. And we just say, when we have the mix-in, we're going to have to do the import for the mix-in now. When we have the mix-in, then we're fine. That's it. It's just 3 lines of code. Can you believe that? Now, do we have everything we need yet? No, we don't. Why is that? Well, another change that we're going to make is we want to make it easy to add pagination to any view that we'd like to add it to. Okay? Because as you see, this is pretty easy to do. I mean, we could add to all of our list of views if we wanted to do that. I'm not going to have you do that yet, but you'll see how easy it's going to be to add pagination to any list view. Okay? All right. So, because of that, we don't want to have to go into each of our views, okay, and add the pagination. I didn't really mean view. I meant our templates. Like, if we look at our template now for instructor list, let's go find instructor list. Okay, it has this little bit of extra content for the pagination content. Here's what we'd like to do. We would like to take that out of here and have that be a standard part of the content in base.html. Okay, so let's do this. Let's take it out of here. Okay. You remember you also have to take it out of student when you do that. Now we've got block and end block, and let's see what it's not liking about that. Let's back up here and see what we broke. Oh, I see what we broke. We need to get rid of the end if. So we need to go from the if to the end if. That's good. We got rid of that. All right. So that's good. All right. So I showed you how to do that. We did instructor list.html, that template together. You're going to have to do the one for student list.html on your own. Okay. All right. Now, what do we have to do? Well, we're going to add content to the bottom of base.html. Okay. Now, where is that content? Well, I've given you that content in your starter files. So here's what you can do. You can just pull the base.html. You can copy it from your starter file. Okay, and then let's copy it over here, give it a paste, and it's going to say, okay, let's paste it. It says, do I want to overwrite? Yes, I would like to overwrite it. Now, what's different? Well, what's different is now every page is going to have this optional pagination content. So if we want to add it to any page, we can. Well, what do we have to do that? Well, we'll use the mix-in, right? If you go back to your view, if you add the mix-in to your view, that'll pretty much take care of it. Pretty nice. All right, now I think we have everything we need. Let's go test that out. Okay, so let's find our link. All right, that's a little too small to see my parts. Okay, here's our link. So here we go. We're on section list. That's not paginated. Let's go to instructors. Okay, now here's we really have some rich functionality now. We're on the first page, so we say page 1 of 6. Not only do we get a link for next, but we get a link for last. When you have a lot of pages, being able to jump to the last or the first is pretty helpful. So we're going to jump to the last, click on here, and we're on page 6 of 6. It has the previous, but it also has a first. So we can go to the previous. That'll bring us to 5 of 6. We can go to the last. Let's go to the previous. It'll go to 4 of 6. Now there's a next and a last, and there's a previous and a first. And let's go to the first. And we're on page 1 of 6. So the beautiful thing here is that what do we have to do to get this thing to be done? Well, we need to add the mix in, right? We need to give it enough information here. So this is going to work with, because we're using the list view and the mix in, we just have to say how much we're going to paginate it by and what's the name of the model class. Isn't that beautiful? So let's come down here and let's get rid of the original code so it's not bothering us. Okay, that looks good. And that's it. It is that easy. Instructor list. Beautiful. Okay, so we've got that to work. Again, what have we done permanently? Well, the change to base.html. That's a permanent change. Okay. The other thing that we've changed is this in the template for the instructor list. Okay, we've taken off that pagination content there. This is the same change in architecture that Pinkham is doing at this point in his book. That's how we got inspired to do it. Okay, now what's temporary? Well, at this point, okay, if you go to utils.py, you'll see that there are two mix-ins. Page links mix-in, which we're going to be keeping indefinitely, okay? And object create mix-in, which we're going to eliminate in a future tutorial part, but right now you need them both, okay? All right, so it's time for you to make the same changes for student list, and I'll see you in the next part of the tutorial. Bye until then.